Some high school programs are so dominant that their schools become synonymous with winning and competing for state titles. Similar to college programs, these schools are able to attract prospective students from far and wide to come and be part of these winning cultures. Many of these schools routinely produce 3, 4, and 5-star recruits that go on to play college football, and many of whom end up turning pro. Is it possible that some of these high school programs are better than some college programs? Is it possible that the best high school team could beat the worst college football team? Today, we're going to explore that hypothetical and see if it's possible. But before we jump into that, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Got it? Good. On to our video. First, let's take a look at our combatants. For the sake of measuring these teams by what they have done instead of what we expect them to do, we are basing this hypothetical matchup on their 2019 rosters, as neither team has played a down of football this year thanks to COVID-19. Representing the high schoolers will be Mater Dei High School out of Santa Ana, California, a perennial powerhouse among high school programs across the nation and arguably the most dominant school around. After an undefeated 2019 season, they sit atop high school composite rankings. Their opponents, Texas Southern, currently ranked 126 out of 126 FCS schools and fresh off a 0-11 campaign in which they gave up over 40 points in 6 out of their 11 contests, including a 77-6 massacre at the hands of Louisiana Lafayette. On the other side, Mater Dei is loaded with college prospects who are ready to take that next step to the collegiate level with 49 FBS recruits of 3 stars or higher, with 6 of them being 5-star recruits. One of those 5-star recruits happens to be the most important position on the field, the quarterback. If we look at Texas Southern's roster, you will see that they don't have a single 4-star recruit, and their last recruiting class had 1 3-star recruit and 2 2-star recruits. On paper, the gap in talent may be as wide as the Grand Canyon, but as they say, that's why you play the game, and until we explore a few more factors, it's impossible to say that talent alone would give the nod to Mater Dei. As they also say, football is a game of inches, and when looking at the first argument in whether or not a high school team could actually beat a college team, we will apply that saying to athlete size. Naturally, college players are older and have a distinct size advantage. In football, most games are won in the trenches, the battle between offense and defensive lines. Could Mater Dei do enough to protect their 5-star recruit quarterback? Could Mater Dei's defensive line put any pressure on Texas Southern's quarterback? Let's take a look. On the surface, it's easy to say that Texas Southern would be the bigger team even if they weren't the better one. But when you look at Mater Dei's roster, a couple of things jump out. One, Mater Dei has a very large junior and senior class, as large as they come at any level of football. Number 2, a lot of these larger athletes are on the D-line, and it doesn't stop there. They even have a 290-pound linebacker. On the offensive line, they are just as big and imposing, with multiple linemen being near or over 300 pounds, so these high schoolers aren't just going to get pushed around by their college foes. Based on the size of Texas Southern's roster, in the trenches where the size advantage would presumably be the largest, they are actually about the same size as Mater Dei. If Texas Southern would roll out its largest tackles and guards on offense, Mater Dei could match them in size. In the area where Texas Southern was likely to have its most important advantage, they clearly do not. As far as measurables go, we're going to call this a push. Let's move on to probably the most important aspect of this whole college versus high school team comparison, the quarterback position. For Mater Dei, as mentioned earlier, the guy leading their huddle is a 5-star recruit. That recruit's name is Bryce Young. Young is the definition of a dual-threat quarterback, capable of terrorizing defenses by air or by ground. He was selected to play in the U.S. Army American Bowl and earned MVP honors and was named Offensive Player of the Year. Depending on whose recruiting analysis you're using, following 2019, Young was arguably the top prospect in all of football. He's slightly undersized at just 6 feet tall, but as Russell Wilson, Drew Brees, and Kyler Murray has shown us, when it comes to QB, as long as you're able to see over the pocket, it doesn't matter of the size of the dog in the fight. The person taking the snaps for Texas Southern would be former Last Chance U star Deandre Johnson. Johnson was a former standout once slated to replace Jameis Winston at Florida State's heir apparent. After an off-field incident led to his dismissal, misfortune found Johnson to Texas Southern, where he was respectable as far as stats are concerned if you consider his team finished an abysmal 0-11. Johnson struggled with accuracy at Texas Southern, while Bryce Young is said to be highly accurate with arm talent to spare. And if Texas Southern were able to bring pressure on Young, he'd be able to show his college opponents that he's just as dangerous with his legs. Given that Mater Dei's secondary is loaded with highly sought-after recruits and Texas Southern secondary is loaded with undersized and mildly athletic players, the advantage is clearly Mater Dei's. Add the fact that Young would be throwing the ball to receivers like 4-star recruit Kyron Ware-Hudson and Christian Dix, who are 6'1" and 6'2" respectively, and can both bully opposing defensive backs in their own way. Kyron with his strength and refined route running, and Dix with his straight line speed and deep routes, Texas Southern would likely have problems all day containing one, if not both of these guys. Deandre Johnson's main target at Texas Southern is Donnie Corley, who is described by his coach as the most NFL-ready receiver on his team and would likely draw Jalen Davies in coverage. Both check in at 6'2" and both are 4-star recruits. This battle may be considered a push, but given Bryce Young's edge and talent over Deandre Johnson at the helm of Mater Dei's offense, the quarterback battle goes to Mater Dei. When it comes to running backs, Mater Dei has the same advantage as at quarterback. Carrying the rock for the high schoolers is Raleigh Brown, a 5-star recruit with talent to spare. A nightmare to other high school opponents and likely would cause the same fits against Texas Southern and their shoddy defense. For Texas Southern, we have Dominic Franklin, a 6', 265-pound running back who bowls over defenders and even makes a few miss. At 265, he's one of the larger running backs you'll see in college or at any level, and if Texas Southern could block for him, he could be a problem to tackle. But as we said earlier, Mater Dei isn't your typical high school football team, and while younger than Texas Southern, they aren't smaller. The battle of the running could be considered a push. All in all, this is a hypothetical and just for fun, and we're not knocking Texas Southern in any way, but given Mater Dei's talent and level of high school domination, we're predicting a victory for the state champion high schoolers over the lowly college team. There are more factors to compute, but if we look at the main aspects that we've covered, it's clear that if you take age out of the equation, most of the advantages go to Mater Dei. If Texas Southern could hand the height, weight, and speed advantage one would presume for a college team over a high school team, then that could have helped close the gap in talent and likely given the advantage to Texas Southern. But since they are the same size and speed for the most part, the only advantage we can give the college team is experience. While that is something to strongly consider, Mater Dei has experience of their own, and that's a winning culture. At the end of the day, a head-to-head like this would probably never happen. But if the worst college team ever played the best high school team, just know that a lot of these high school programs are like college programs now, with players being more college-ready than ever before. And if you were to put a wager on that game, that will probably never happen. Remember this video and don't just choose a college team because, well, they're a college team. Do me a favor and click the like and subscribe buttons if you haven't done so already, and drop us a comment on what you think about the worst college team versus the best high school team. Agree? Disagree? Let us know. Until next time, sports fans.